welcome to another episode of Spiritual Tea with me, Teja Priyadarshini. Today, I have a very special guest all the way from Portugal and from the UK. She is quite famous around the world as an Akashic Records guide and also an intuitive business coach. She's also an activator and healer. And today, she is joining us to give us information about the Akashic Records. Her name is Natasha Harris. Welcome, Natasha, to Spiritual Tea. I'm so excited to have you here. It's been such a dream to have another soul similar to my energies, and I want to ask you so many questions. The first thing I would like to know is, how did you become aware of your abilities, or what was your journey like?
Oh my goodness, my journey has been up and down, sideways, roundabout. It hasn't been a particularly linear journey at all. It's I don't know where to start because it goes back, I think, before we were even born, our journey starts. But, my early journey, I was an IT manager. Oh. I was an IT project manager. I worked on big project rollouts. I was very much around risk assessment and, getting projects out on time. And so I came very much from a very logical mind. I always feel, though, that I had a sense that things were working out. I just I knew I would take a step and things would work out, but I had no concept or understanding of that. I didn't grow up with, or not that I remember anyway, because I do feel that sometimes we have these abilities and then because of one thing and another, they're quietened down. We're told to stop being silly. And so my memory from those early days is not that. I wasn't an intuitive as such, I always saw angels or I always had conversations with people and stuff like that. But it was really a gradual process, a very slow opening up for me. And I think that was the journey I chose. I'm getting chills as I say that now. It wasn't a fast track to anything. There was moments in my time where I made decisions and choices, and I can very clearly see with hindsight how that was a trajectory shift. It was like a little nudge from soul, from my Akashic records, from the higher powers that be, to shift my focus towards something. So I left IT, and I was always very close to nature. I always loved being out in nature, and I loved traveling. And then I got very interested in conservation and transferred my skills from project management in IT to conservation. And I was very, very fortunate that I got to travel to some most incredible places around the world and set up projects in beautiful locations. And that really, I think, was the start of the journey of connecting me back to me, connecting me back to nature, what was important, letting go of this strive to the corporate line. And then I got interested in yoga, in Reiki energy. And I remember, turning up at a workshop going, oh, this sounds interesting. No idea what this is. And ending up being in this class with, learning energy healing and thinking, oh my gosh, it was like my brain could not comprehend it, but my body responded to it in the giving and in the receiving. So it wasn't, and then it just expanded from there. And I got very curious about, lives between lives, like where did we go after death? And I just started reading a lot of things. And then I think I knew that this was around the Akashic records, but I didn't know or understand the term Akashic records. That was something new. So when that landed for me, I was like, oh, this is what I'm playing in. Now I need to learn this and understand this and take it further. So I think that was like a very gradual over a decade or so of exploration, self-development, spiritual development, that it kind of started to make sense for me.
And when did you notice that you had these psychic abilities to connect with the records to receive information?
Yeah, I think it was, again, a very gradual. I don't think I have one distinct time where I realized it was pieces. I see things as pieces of a jigsaw. So I see energy. I always had this ability to see energy, though I didn't really understand what that was. I could see how things linked in the energetic world, and like, oh, okay, if we do this, then this unfolds. And so as a coach, because that was one of my initial trainings to become an accredited coach, I could just see how things were being impacted and how things from the past were being impacted now and how we were rippling that out. So I started to without really knowing, or just following those nudges, following that guidance, like asking the questions, seeing where it led. I had a very curious mind. I would just follow the trail and see where it took me and my clients.
Were you trained in a particular way to access the records?
So I think through certain things, and then I did a course called Soul Realignment, which was really interesting and really fascinating, but it was very much intellectual. It was like, understand this, understand the processes and the past lives. And then I started to really see just things unfolding. So I was no longer kind of following that. I was starting to see and sense, and this knowing of like how things piece together, that, oh, this comes from a past life. Oh, this energy comes from a past life. This is what was created in a past life, and this is how we're still living through it. And working with the Akashic records, I never really saw it as a place that I went to. I could not get my head around that. And I think you touched on that just before. I could never really get my head around, oh, it's a place I visit. It just was all of everything.
Yes.
It's like we are tapping into our soul. We're communicating with our soul. We're receiving information from ourselves. It is us. It is who we are. And I then started to receive downloads in the form of where I was guiding people through meditations and activations to meet themselves. And so it was like really this beautiful gift of trusting, taking a step, going, well, I don't really know how to lead meditations, but I'm being guided in this group session to lead a meditation. And then it just unfolded from there. So I think it was really trust in myself, what I was receiving, and being willing to take the next step.
As intuitives and as healers or as light workers, many of us, when we get onto this path, our life changes dramatically. Like, there is so much of change. There are a lot of people who stop connecting with us anymore because we can't relate to them or they can't relate to us. How did your life change after you quit your IT side of things and move into this?
Yes. So as I said, it was like a couple of steps. I went into conservation. So I think the people around me had a moment to recognize that, oh, okay, she's going into conservation. That's acceptable. And she's working with projects and she's doing lots of things grassroots, because like being grounded is very, very important for me. For me, the shifts and the change happen here in the physical. Like, we're working in the energetics and I love that. But for me, it was always the curiosity. Well, how do we impact and create change here? How do we impact that? So I think I started to see my life changing in many different ways. I haven't really seen people disappearing from my life. I think people came on the journey with me. Like, it was that gradual step, but a lot of my life changed. Like relationships shifted and changed, and my view of the world changed. How I related to the world really changed. New people came in to support my new way of thinking, of being, of seeing the world. And I think what really supported me to keep moving forward was this sense of groundedness, like of wanting to be part of this earthly plane. I love people, I love being connected, I love community, but my work changed, and I think it took a lot of, I think for me it was really trusting that leap of faith, that okay, now I'm being nudged to leave conservation, I'm being nudged to shift trajectories again, that I wanted to be a coach, I wanted to be an energy healer, and those things started to become a little bit more acceptable. So I think I and then with the Akashic records, and people were like, oh, okay, this is her next step. This is the next thing she teaches. So I feel like some things have really trying to piece the pieces together, because it's so fascinating to look and think, well, I almost don't remember or like can identify with that version of myself, but I can see the journey, and it has been an unfolding. And I know for some people it's very instant and very disorientating and very jarring to suddenly have these or wake these abilities up, like a Kundalini awakening can be very, very disorientating and very uncomfortable for our human. And I think I clearly chose a path that was a little bit more comfortable, but I can see that in my clients, and I can really hold them through that because I can slow them down. I can see the beauty in just slowing things down again, that we are in control, that nothing is happening to us, and that we can remain in our power. We can keep supporting our nervous system, that we don't have to be, even though it might be a shock, that we can actually do things and support ourselves in ways to make that more soothing and make that more integrated as part of who we are. So I think that's probably a long way around of trying to say that.
A lot of us have noticed that shift of energy in our world. Like, a lot of people are beginning to wake up to their true potential, and they don't understand all of it. Growing up, I did not have the emotional support that I needed to understand my abilities. Sooner on, it took me a while to find the people who could guide me on that path. But what would your advice be for those who are struggling right now, not knowing whether it's real or it's in their mind, when they're going through that change and shift, you know?
Yeah, I think it's so important to have people around you that support you. I think one of the things, especially in the world now, we feel very isolated. We feel very different because it is so against the norm, and there is so much fight to hold on to, you know, the normal way of doing things. We've got to work hard. We've got to, you know, toe the line. We've got to keep up with everybody else. And there's so much pressure for us, but so many people are in this space of awakening, of realizing that there is something more curious, and I would say keep following those nudges, but don't be in a hurry. Like, we have time. I think there's this sense of like we're running out of time, you know, the world is falling apart, the world is crumbling, we've got to be quick. And we feel a very strong sense of responsibility, a real weight and a burden that I have to do this because otherwise everything's going to fall apart. And actually, my belief is that we can only do what we're able to do in the moment, come back to the moment. Kindness, compassion, self-care, self-love are absolutely key energies that we want to strengthen in our core being, that we've got this. And actually, we are co-creating. None of us are doing this individually. And it can feel like a very lonely journey. And if it feels lonely, what I would say is, please seek help. Please seek your soul sisters, your soul brothers. There are so many of us out there that are building communities, that are arms open wide, and trust what you feel is your intuition guiding you towards certain things. Allow yourself to be curious, stay open. So there's a few things wrapped up in that, but really to know that you don't have to do this alone, that it might feel that everybody in your world don't get it, don't understand it, don't support you, are supporting you only to feel like you're going crazier. But there are others out there who've been doing this for years or are new to the journey and want to support. We are co-creating. I really do think about this as like soul leadership, that actually, as we move forward, you know, I have a hand extended to those that need a little bit of support and say, come on, let's go, we've got this, we're all right. And then when I'm struggling, which I do, because we are still human, we still get things wrong. I get things wrong, hands up. I'm still figuring things out. I'm still learning. I don't know what's coming yet. I can get a sense of it, but who I want to be in that journey is still very important. So when I wobble, which I do, I have soul sisters and soul brothers around me who I can go, hey, struggling a little bit, kind of need a hand, have you got me? And they're like, got you, Tash, like, let's go, come on, we're all right. And then we're just all in this space so that we know that we have each other, because it's unsettling. It is scary to break down those old paradigms that we've been playing out over lifetime, and in this lifetime it's still very much present and it's still holding on strong.
Yes, and I totally agree with you when you said that we need to be kind and compassionate with ourselves, feel more grounded within ourselves. And I want to add to that, saying that when you fall deeply in love with yourself is when your psychic senses become very strong, and you feel more connected with not just the universe, but with everything around you, with the people, with the animals, with the plants, everything, even with inanimate objects, right?
Yes.
So I think falling in love with oneself is paramount to being more in tune with your own energies, because that is when they come out to play. Having said that, I've done thousands of sessions, right, reading the Akashic records of so many people around the world, and there have been like a few messages that keep repeating over and over again, because most of the time the questions are quite common. I'm asked, what is the purpose of my life? And
yes.
I'm asked, how do I increase my frequency, and things of that sort. So what is, like, I would like to share my message, what I got from the guides, but I want to know from you, has there been like, common messages that you receive from the guides as well, which can help people understand what is their purpose of life? Because I tell my clients, the purpose is different from the mission that you have on earth. They're two different things. So which is the one that you want to know? Whenever I ask about the purpose, there's one common answer I receive, but I want you to tell me if you get.
Yeah. So I feel the same. I get asked that a lot. What's my purpose? And I feel that question almost comes from a place of fear of, what if I don't ever find this out and I don't accomplish my mission, my purpose, what I'm here supposedly to do. The thing that I feel most strongly that comes through for me around this, it is about the fact that we are unique. We are all beautiful, unique beings. And our role, our purpose in coming for choosing to come into this human form, into this lifetime, at this incredibly interesting time in history, shall we call it, is that we are coming back to who we are, like innately who we are. It is about remembering who we are. It's about getting to know ourselves so deeply, fall in love with ourselves again so deeply, that we know that we are simply energy, that we are source energy, we are all of everything. There is nothing that we are not. Every cell contains the universe. We came here to have a full, rich experience, but we do have free will and choice. So we get to choose, but we get to choose what feels good for us, what we want to do. And so I think for this answer, I think what comes back to me resoundingly time and time again is that it is a deepening and a knowing of who we are, our uniqueness, letting that shine through. We've got so many layers of conditioning, distortion in our frequency, misunderstandings of how everything works. And we've simply forgotten, and we're re-remembering. I think we're reawakening every cell in our being. This is the embodiment piece that I talk about so hugely, is that it is about that soul and you as a human form are not separate. You are one and the same. And it's about a union, bringing that back together and recognizing that we are all powerful creatures. Like we are capable of doing whatever we choose. So I think for me, that's what I really feel purpose is, and our mission is what we get to choose, how we fulfill that. What do we feel burning in our bellies that we want to get out and we want to share with the world? And that is us.
True.
more of us.
The common answer that I get, I think, in more simpler terms, is the more fun you have, like a child has fun, without any agendas, without any filters, the higher your frequency gets, and it kind of expands your heart in ways that you can't even imagine.
Yes.
So that I think is a different way of putting it. What you said is it makes more sense to me. My guides like to just say it as simple as possible for people. But having fun, I think, is like the most basic thing we humans forgotten. We forget that it's not about taking life seriously. It's about having fun at it, because we have chosen to be in these bodies to experience all the emotions that this body can allow us to experience. So why not? Instead of being so stoic all the time and like holding back your emotions and feelings, let it out.
I totally agree. And like, as somebody who used to take life very seriously, it is about, and I think that's about shining our true light. It's light. It is fun. It's weird. It's about experiencing the pleasures of life, the beauty of life. It's everywhere, and I think we have forgotten how to, to have fun in life. And even with as children, I mean, you kids are having fun. It's like, grow up, like, don't be silly. I'm like, why not? That's the time when you can do it. Like, don't be out of them already. I mean, it's like, we've just got to come back to our innate nature, I think. And I love that. It is about having more fun in life. We're here to have a full experience and enjoy it.
Yeah. And like you said, the mission is the burning passion that drives you. And many people nowadays get stuck in the same 9-to-5 kind of jobs, or things that they don't want to do anymore, but they keep giving themselves, they give themselves excuses. No, I have to pay the EMIs, and I have to do this, and I have to do that, take care of the family. So they are boxing themselves in instead of trying to find other choices they can make to have a happier life. And this goes with money as well, don't you think? Like, a lot of people have these reservations about receiving money. What would you say about that?
Oh my gosh, well, fun definitely comes into that, because it's money is such a, we've attached so much meaning to money. It's good, it's bad, it's evil. People who have it are evil, have bad intentions. Money doesn't grow on trees. Don't want too much. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, it's endless. You could write a whole book of all the money beliefs that we've conditioned ourselves with, and we are delayering them and delayering them. But money is just an energy. I mean, it's like, even now, so much like, who carries cash anymore? Physical money. It's just energy moving around the system. It's not even real. It's if you think about it like that, and you're like, people are just like, adding zeros, let's have, like, create trillionaires now. It's like, money is ever expanding. Like, to be a millionaire 20 years ago was quite something. Now it's billionaires, and now it's like, who's the first trillionaire? Who's the first trillionaire woman? And so it's like, money is always expanding. So be playful in that expansion of it. And energy attracts energy. So if we hold these patterns of conditioning around money, that we have to be responsible with money, to some degree, but like, if we have to be responsible and we can't have fun with it, and we don't be too elaborate or too frugal with it, or whatever that conditioning is, then we can, like, that's what we're attracting more of. That's what we're bringing more of, energy to the money. So if we can have fun with it, I love playing and having fun with it, seeing where we can go with it, what's possible. Yes. What could we possibly create? And it's just magnetism. It's just magnetic. If you want to, like, that's why they say money goes to money.
Yes.
It's magnetic. It's energy. If you hold that belief that you will just have more, you will. There's nothing wrong with that.
It's such a simple concept, right? Like, if you are blocking the receiving of that energy, you don't block the receiving of love, then why do you block the receiving of money? Because both of them are just energies. So if you can receive money without any limitations or conditions, what you do with it is irrelevant. But if you are able to receive it, money would love to spend time with you. It's like that. So this is another, I think, important message that I've received from the guides as well, that the more you have fun with money and not chase it, but do things that you are passionate about, it becomes more attracted towards you and it starts to flow into your life more. Because the more you worry about it and the more you get into that frequency of lack, the money would be like, oh, you don't want me, so why do I have to be in your life? Right?
Yeah, so celebrate every money, like celebrate all of it. And because then again, you have a different frequency, a different energy to money. You see money differently. So I often joke that I love to celebrate. I think celebration is such a beautiful energy. And I do that through movement, because moving the body shifts an energy already. So anyone that comes into my world, I have a wall of post-it notes for anyone who comes into anything, even if it's free. I celebrate every person that comes in, even if it's a freebie, or I see an email pop in to something, and I'll be celebrating, and that energy compounds. And then there are more people to celebrate and more people to celebrate. And then there's an exchange of the money for the services, for the intuition, for my gifts, for my guidance. And so it's like this whole thing is like, it's not just wrapped up in money and receiving money. It's in how you are creating it and what you're doing in the exchange of it as well. So all of it needs to be fun. And just the celebration of it is the fun part for me. So I call it celebration, but it is, it's fun. It's having a little dance around the room.
That's awesome.
Doing a little boogie and moving the energy. That's so
cool. I think people need to celebrate, because of late I hear, what is there in celebrating your birthday or, the New Year's or Christmas. I'm like, it is an occasion that people have made up because we need reasons to celebrate. And, I think these holidays are like an excuse for the entire world to take off and celebrate their families and be grateful for whatever they have in life. And I think gratitude is also a very powerful frequency to attract money or abundance in general in your life. And you also mentioned you're an intuitive business coach. How did that happen? Did you get drawn towards business because of your background?
I think because I always had, because of my project management background, I always had, again, a sense of how big, multi-million pound project rollouts back in the day. So it was, that was quite a lot of money to be managing. It was like that I could see how things worked. So when I started my own business, it was no different, because for me, it was just a big project. It was a project that I needed to work out and to succeed. The marketing side of things was a whole nother ball game. So that was a learning in itself, and how to get out there and how to speak to camera, and all of these things are things that were not in my, what I would say, something that I'd ever done. But then when I found it, I found a love for it. So I think the intuitive business coach was that I could just see where people were holding themselves back. And I think that the Akashic records also, help us to support us to see what are those distortions in our energy. What are we doing that's so out of alignment, on a different frequency to what our unique frequency is. So of course there's going to be a jarring. That's why money is going to be hard to make, or why we're forcing ourselves to fit in a box and do this path in business, because very often when we come from corporate and then we want the freedom of becoming an entrepreneur, because we want the freedom and the autonomy and to be able to dictate, we work just as hard, probably harder. We're entrenched in all sorts of other things that come with it. And so we're really having to decondition and delayer all of those things so that we do find the freedom in that. I always say that, entrepreneurship sometimes is not for the faint-hearted, because it is an up and down journey. And I think there is no greater initiation to our spiritual path than being an entrepreneur, because we have to really exercise that level of safety, that level of I'm okay, I've got this. It's not all about the money and bringing in. That is a big part of it. But I love working with spiritual entrepreneurs, because they have a deep mission. They have a deep desire to change the world. And I think that stems from my conservation background and supporting people to really thriving, especially as women in business.
And also because the divine feminine energy is on the rise. I think it's activating a lot of us And when I tell them it's the divine feminine that is rising, they're like, oh, it's only for women. I'm like, no, women and men, in everyone, you have both that energy. And if it is in imbalance, that is when a lot of ups and downs happen. So if you bring them up and balance both these energies, that is when life kind of flows more harmoniously. So yeah, so I mean, it's wonderful that you're working with these spiritual entrepreneurs to elevate their businesses and to make them reach more people, because I think that is what is required now. A lot of us are going through things that we don't understand, especially since the ascension has started full blown. The energies have been like playing havoc with our bodies as well. I get asked about different aches and pains in the bodies, to like the pounding in the head, and not many are aware that this could be a symptom of ascension, that your body is recalibrating itself to take in all of that cosmic light and the cosmic energies that are flowing in. But having said that, do you get messages ever from your guides regarding what's happening on a global scale, like not political, but energy? Because during the pandemic, they were working on the crystalline grid outside of the earth, not in the earth. And I was very fascinated by that, because I kept getting downloads about the grid outside of the earth, around planet Earth. And the information they were giving me about why this was happening on Earth was very fascinating. Never spoke about it publicly though. But do you ever get such messages?
So that is really interesting. I think I love the way that you receive messages. I think sometimes mine are more subtle in the messages or the understandings that I receive. So just hearing you say that around the crystalline energy around the earth, my crown obviously started tingling. But I think for me during the pandemic, I really felt that there was a big expansion in the energies. And I I think it was around then that I started to receive information about beyond the Akashic records. Like, it's not just the Akashic records, there's more, and we're stretching out into space. Like the universe, we know this, there's like ever expanding. And so the messages that I started to download and receive were that as we are receiving, and we're rapidly, consciousness is increasing very, very rapidly. We're expanding very, very rapidly. There's more light we're emitting, and we're being asked to hold. But as we expand, we're receiving new wisdom, new information, new guidance that's been kind of like on the edges. And so we are now trying to catch up with that energy on the physical, on the third dimensional level. And so that's why it can feel really uncomfortable, very confusing, because the physical body, as you say, it's like all sorts of symptoms come up, because we're moving so fast energetically, it takes longer for the physical body to catch up with that. So for me, it was always about, okay, take a breath, slow it down. It's okay. We've got this. Keep the nervous system regulated. Stay in this space of safety as much as we can. And as we know, during the pandemic, everything was about fear.
Yes.
So I think we were what I was receiving was, how do we hold this safe sense of safety while the messages are the rising of fear? And that was a very difficult thing to speak out to, because everyone was in so much fear. And yet I was like, I'm being guided to stay in safety, and I am safe. And how do I explain that to people who are like, well, you need to do this, or you have to do this? And I'm like, no, I need to stay in this frequency. So that was very much around that. So that image of them working on the crystalline energies of the beyond really makes sense, because I was really seeing that we were pushing ourselves further out, and that makes sense from what you receive. And that's the beauty of it. We receive these similar messages
in different
ways, because not everybody will understand what I say, but they'll get what you say, or the other way around. And this is the part of co-creation. Absolutely. We're not in competition. We do the same thing. We receive messages. We are all part of the divine. So there is no fight against each other. There's only standing together and recognizing there's no right and wrong. There's just a different way of interpreting. And everyone we're 8 billion people on the planet. I mean, my goodness, we're all at different, not higher or lower, we're just in different spaces. So what we're capable of receiving will be in one form as opposed to another. So we all have a role. We all have a role to play. Yeah. And it's about trusting our intuition to say, what resonates? What resonates? What am I being magnetized towards? What am I being magnetized towards out of fear, or because there's something that encourages me to go there? And I think that is one of the most powerful questions we can ask ourselves right now, while there's still so much fear on the planet, am I actually resonant to this, or am I being encouraged through fear, through my own fear? How can I just drop that, create a bit of space, and reassure myself I'm safe, and make a choice then? And if it's still that, go with it.
True. And you also said that you are an activator. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes, I've always played in this, because I do think sometimes these words, they become popular. They become like alignment. Now I'm like, how have we phrased alignment now? So, I mean, for me, an activator, and my meditations that I guide people through, I really feel they are activations for the purposes of the fact that we are working across all dimensions. We are not sitting in meditation to tap into something that's outside of us. The activation is to remember that we are all of it.
Yes.
And that we wake up every cell of our being. So what I do with the activations is I'm guiding people in the Akashic records or in the energies. But actually what we're doing is we're activating the physical body, the cellular memory, to wake up and remember how powerful we are. And we hold that light within us. So for me, it's working across all dimensions and beyond, rather than guiding through something. And I love being guided through meditations, I'm not saying, but I think there's a subtle difference to being guided through something that soothes our nervous system or helps us to do X, Y, Z. But the activation is it's the playing with the energy, it's the movement of the energy, it's the reminding of every cell in our being that we are whole.
That's beautifully put. When you do these activation meditations, off late, what is the focus on? What are the guides focused on activating within us?
Yeah. So I think every activation is different. I never plan an activation meditation. It's so interesting.
I understand that totally.
Yeah, I never plan it. I used to and this is when it was meditation for me. I'd be like, I need to write the script. I need to read it. This was when I was learning. And then it was one day, it was like, I'm like, okay, I don't need that piece of paper. Okay, what's going on here? So I'm very much guided with what's needed in the moment, but also not only working on the physical. So I'm receiving information. It's like they're telling me what I'm doing. So it's so interesting.
You can never switch that off.
No, you can't. And it's like people go, you are, yeah, I'm just listening. But it's not only in our own dimensions, but we are activating it whatever the universe and the planets need. And so we're working on not only our own dimensions, but we're working on all dimensions everywhere. So I feel like sometimes I'm not quite things or images or visuals will come through for the people I'm guiding, but I also am working in dimensions that this is for all of everyone without attachment. I think that's really, really key. It's not my job to shift anything, to do anything in the collective, but that by us shifting something, we're shifting it in the collective, we're shifting it in the ascension process, we're shifting it in the Akashic records of all things. So it's always being given to me what's needed in this precise moment, I believe, and it's trusting that is what's needed and just flowing with it. And I also believe, you probably as well, is our voice also holds a unique vibration and frequency. So the way that I'm receiving the information, where I'm interpreting it, and the way I speak it will also have a different ripple effect. And that's why I think it's so important that so many of us are doing this work.
Yes.
that we are all doing this. Because then I was like seeing other people doing these activations, and I'm like, oh, that's weird. Like, oh,
It's the
I didn't
same
even know
message.
this was a thing. Like, oh, I knew meditation was a thing. I had a meditation practice, but I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And so I'm like realizing like we are all receiving from divine source, and this is about lighting our gifts. This is about being who we are, and I do believe that is part of my purpose, is to do this, and it's not always comfortable, and that's what we're doing collectively. So
Yes. Even when I used to do activation meditations, or I just call them channeled meditations,
Yeah.
like you, I never had a script because I was compelled. There was this energy of that would just surge through me, saying that, okay, on this day we have to have a meditation.
Yeah.
So, and I wouldn't know the significance of that day, if it was a full moon or a no moon, nothing, But on that day, somebody would tell me that, you know what, today is a very significant day, and I would
I know.
okay.
This is exactly what happens.
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, I haven't prepared anything. What am I going to even talk about? And the moment I get on the channel meditations, the guides take over, and it's their job. I tell them, look, you brought me here. Now you guide. Like, I'm not doing anything here. So, like you said, they have a certain way of transmitting that energy to the people who are listening to it anywhere and everywhere, whether it is in person or online. There is no barrier for that kind of a transmission. And each of the people who listen to it have various experiences in their body. And I get so stunned when people, report back saying that I felt like this, and there was this energy tingling through me, and I saw lights and colors, and I'm like, really? Am I able to channel that kind of energy, that people are actually having experiences with it? And then I would, tell myself, oh, I must have, I'm very, I was in the media earlier, so I was like, oh, I might have had a very creative mind, so I made this stuff up. And then I would go to these other channels and watch other people, also doing channel meditations. It would be somewhat of the same message coming through from them as well. And then I would be like, okay, I didn't know this. And I said what I said, and then I went back to watching them, and the messages are quite similar. Yeah. And that is when like you said right earlier, it doesn't matter who's delivering the message, as long as it's understood. Yes. So you can describe a rose in many different forms, and I could call a rose in a different form, but people who will get you will get you, people who will get me. But the message is the same. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And asking people to come along for the ride is even better, because the more people get together and do this, the energy it becomes more expansive. And that is one of the things that me and Sushma and the others are planning to achieve at some point. Get a community going in India that is constantly expanding and adding a lot of people there, so that people don't feel like they're alone on their journey, that they can find the support that they require. That is so important. I feel like people need to know that they're supported, that there are weirdos like us who they can reach out to.
I totally agree, and it's so beautiful, isn't it? And I think it reaffirms the trust that actually, when we think, well, I didn't know that, yet that's what came through, and then we witness someone else saying it, and it's like, there's no coincidence. That's so we deepen our trust, and it's a journey, right, to deepening that trust in how we express ourselves and how we do things, and we really trust the messages that come through, and it's more fun doing it this way. It really is. It's like, okay, don't need a script. It's like we're communicating with something that is so beautiful and wise, and we're transmitters. We're here to pick up a frequency, pick up a message, and share it. And as you say, it's so beautiful when you get messages back from people saying they had all these experiences. I'm like, oh wow, that's amazing, and how beautiful that is. The shifts that we are. Oh, excuse me, just had a sneeze. That's my God. Fun. Thank you. Came out of nowhere. And it's like just really, really being in deep celebration that's the shift that we can create for people, and that we can invite people into this space with no agenda, with just love, holding light, and being in a space where we're all figuring it out together.
True. Like you said, it's not like we are experts in anything. We're also constantly learning and evolving. Every session I have,
gosh.
and every message I get from my clients, it resonates with me as well. So this change constantly happening within me when, even though I'm just the conduit of that energy, for the client. So it's just so wonderful to do what we do, and it's exciting. And I tell people anyone can do it. You don't need special certifications or qualifications or anything of that sort. It's just having that deep faith and surrendering to the process, I think, would help a lot, more than having conditions saying that if I can see it, if I can feel it, then I will believe it. It doesn't work like that in at least not in our world.
No, we have to take a step and then the universe meets us. And often what we're doing is like saying, I will take a step when the universe meets me. And they're like, and it's like, no, let's take a step and then the universe meets you. And I do think that that's absolutely true. It's like, a lot for me, a lot around my teachings and the things that I do, it's very much about building trust. It's not, this is the way to do it. I think we're beyond the way of saying if you want a spiritual practice, you have to do these 7 things. If you want to be, experience work on self-love, then you have to do these things. It's like, here's a framework, here's a way of doing things. Find your own way through it, because you are unique.
Yes.
What works for me won't work for someone else. But a version of, and even the things that I don't know about you, but even the things that I used to do that I was like, oh yeah, this really works for me. This is my go-to thing. It really works. And then like a year later, I'm like, oh, this thing doesn't work anymore. Yeah. And I realize it's because I am different. I have evolved. I have expanded. I hold more of my own frequency. I've come back more to my innate true self. And so I need something slightly different from this perspective. And yet there's the fight to want to go, but I must make that work again. I must be doing something wrong. It's like, no, now what's for you? So I don't know if you experience that as well, but I find that totally fascinating, which is why we can't be in a box anymore.
Yes. I know we wanted to do an activation, but I have like another fascinating question. So maybe we can skip the activation for now. Because you are also constantly speaking to your guides, and I see that you receive them from the left side and I receive them from the right. So they're constantly like, there's this energy that I hear from the right, and I want to know what your connection or relationship with your guides is. Do they have a personality? Because I know there are no labels or names, they're just frequencies. So I wouldn't ask you about what they call, but what is the relationship like?
So it's really interesting that you asked that, because my brain just immediately went, well, I'm left-handed, so it makes sense I would I don't know. So but I do hear I hear them up here, whereas I hear my voice down here, like the voice that just says no. So it is all from my left. But it is an opening, and it's like I have 2 particular guides that I very much more visually see. And one of them is more about reminding me to stay playful, to stay in that energy, and the other one is more of that stepping into mastery. So it's like, it's that, okay, keep evolving, keep growing. It's that pull. So they're much more present, but then I do feel guides around me all the time, but they come in and out. Those are the 2 that I identify with very quickly when they want to come through. But I really had to work on letting go of the attachment of what they are, because they shift or they change. And the way I receive the messages also changes. So I have to also discern letting go of that need. Well, if I don't hear them the way I used to, then where have they gone? So then there's that fear of like, oh, okay.
Am I disconnected?
Am I disconnected? Is it changing? And I think that's something that we can be quite fearful of as well, in the sense of, oh, I have this innate gift and now all of a sudden I'm in a void. Right. or like everything feels like it's switched off, but it is just space, and it's like how we navigate that space and how we move through that and see what's changed and different on the other side. So yeah, I love it. I get nudges as well. I like literally get a physical tap or like a loud clap or something like that. So it comes to me in very different ways often. But the nudge is hilarious because I'm like, in my head, I can hear myself going, yeah, all right, give me a minute. Just give me a minute. I'm on it. It's all right. Yeah. So I have quite a playful dialogue with them.
Yes. That is what I wanted to find out, because my guides have their own personality and they love to make fun of me sometimes. They're like, oh my God, this girl doesn't get it, and they also tend to get miffed when I don't do some things, and they're like, I'm not talking to you right now. They actually say things like that. So, and then I'm like, coaxing them to come back and have a conversation. Yeah. So like you, at random places they decide to like have this conversation loudly, and you're so distracted because you're outside, you're with other people, and then you're like, wait 1 minute, like I have to finish this conversation first. Does it ever make you feel out of place, like with people especially who don't understand the gifts that you have?
Yeah, that's really interesting. No, I'm trying to think if there is a situation where that's happened, and I don't think so. I feel I've got quite good at it in saying, like being in command and saying, right, not now because I'm engaged and I'm present here. I don't know whether it's like a two-way thing, but like I do feel like that relationship with our guides, or with my guides, has been a relationship that I've developed over time, and like any other relationship has changed. So I feel that they're around me when I call them. And yeah, it's interesting because it's like I'm trying to piece together what's the intuitive part when I'm in a conversation with somebody or with others, and just that intuition to be nudged, or whether that comes from my guides. That's something I'm going to keep an observation on. Nice question, that, because I actually not 100% sure.
For me, it's
speaking that out. Yeah,
it's easy for me to notice that changes, because when I'm speaking in I, it's me, but when they start speaking, it's we. And that is when I know they've hijacked the conversation. So, and sometimes it's like, it's so important for that person to receive that information that I don't stop them. I'm like, let them flow, and they go on like, we want you to do this and we want you to do that. And the person opposite me would be like, why are you speaking in plural?
Okay, so it's very, very obvious. Yeah. No, I don't. That's not how it comes through for me. So that's interesting. Yeah.
And then they would also kind of volunteer information when it's not required as well.
Yes.
When someone is actually pouring their heart out about something, and they're like constantly, tell them this, like, this is what it's going to be like. And I'm like, no, they better pay for the session and come. I'm not giving them free advice. But I can't help it. It's such a strong energy that I end up giving them that information, and sometimes I spook people when I start channeling them, and I don't become a different person. But even then, when someone is being told something which I'm not supposed to know, and it kind of freaks them out. So I just wanted to know how you would handle something like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously when we're with clients, we do know information. I see it more from that perspective, and this is interesting because I'm really curious, because I see it more as a perspective of that my guides are speaking with their guides, so it's really a conversation that's coming from them. So the way I relay it is that the information is coming through from your guide, so so it doesn't freak them out so much. It's like I'm just getting this information through a circular space. So I feel it's interesting because it's so subtle, isn't it? It's so fine. It's only when we shine a light on it and when we get curious about it and go, well, where is that information coming through? I feel like it's my guides saying, okay, their guides want that information. So the communication tends to be different. Yeah. And if it's outside of a paying session or a paying client, I think I probably just relay it as something intuitive that I'm picking up on, or, you know,
I think I should try to tell them to do that instead of just blurting stuff out. It's been quite a bit. You know, they put me in very embarrassing situations at times.
Well, have a word with them. Say no more embarrassing situations. Like we want it to be.
It would be so random. There would be like a bank manager, and he would be talking about my account, and then there would be information about his dead sister that, you know, they want him to know about.
Yeah. So because you're a medium as well, right?
Yes.
So I don't. Yeah. So that's not something that I work actively with. So that's very different, I think, as well.
Yes. Yeah, but sometimes it's just about, you know, general stuff about their life. Like if especially a friend is asking about their work or, you know, their relationship, they love to like be part of everything. So it's just it's nice to know that you're never alone.
Yes, absolutely, and we're never alone. Yet we feel, as a, you know, I think we touched on it a little bit, but it's like we feel so isolated and alone, and yet that reminder that we're never really truly alone is so comforting. It's so reassuring that we don't have to walk this journey alone. We have got support. We just need to lean into a little bit of trust and a little bit of and allow things to flow a little bit more. It's beautiful. It is a gift, and we all have that ability. As you said, there's no one's more special. There really isn't.
Yes. Thank you so much, Natasha, for your time. I have taken more than enough time, and we are yet to do the activation. So maybe sometime in the future, if we can reconnect, that would be
do.
There's so many questions now that my guys are also interested in asking you, but I'm like, you know what? Let's just dive it out today.
Let's have another conversation. I'm always curious, and maybe we do a live one, but it's been fun. Thank you so much for inviting me. I always love to talk about all things Akashic and beyond, because, you know, we are working way beyond just that. And so, thank you so much.
Thank you for doing this.